Good evening and welcome. My name is Ginger Fay, and I'm one of the directors at Appleruth Tutoring Services. We are a company that provides tutoring, academic tutoring from middle school through college, as well as support for college entrance exams and other kinds of entrance exams for private high schools and for the GRE as well. And we also help students with executive function issues. But our real mission and purpose is to spread good ideas and information. We want to create as many opportunities as we can for students to pursue their dreams and their goals when it comes to their education. And we know that cost of college can be a stumbling block for a lot of students and families. And so we wanted to invite some great colleagues to help us address that conversation in a really broad way. And that's where the College and Money series came from. And you're here for the final installment of our series. So we started 3 weeks ago talking about the cost of college and planning for it. Last week, we talked about the financial aid process, and tonight we're joined by a wonderful colleague and friend of mine, Will Geiger from Scholarship 360, to talk a little bit about the scholarship search process. So I'm thrilled that Will is here and able to share his expertise with you. Will has a ton of experience in this space. Like me, he's worked in college admissions as well as high school, college counseling, and has really devoted his work of late to helping students find affordable pathways to college. So I'm thrilled to share the work that he's doing at Scholarship 360 with you. And I invite you to ask any questions that you have, and we'll try and cover as many different topics as we can in the next hour. So feel free to take advantage of that Q&A box and put your questions in there, and we'll try and cover as many topics as we can. We will be sharing a recording of tonight's presentation, and Will has graciously offered to share his slides with us. So as long as you're registered for the event, you'll have access to that, and you can also access the previous installments in this series if that would be of interest to you. So thank you so much, Will, for being here, and I'll let you get us started.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Ginger, for the kind introduction. So really excited to be here with you all to help you fund your future with scholarships. Again, my name is Will Geiger, co-founder of scholarship360.org. Just want to, I guess, tell you a little bit about my story and just why I'm so passionate about helping students pay for their post-secondary education. I was a first-generation college student, so when I was going through high school, I'm actually the oldest of three boys, so I was the first to go through the admissions process. I think part of the daunting part of college admissions is just actually getting into college. The other, really daunting thing is paying for college. I was lucky enough to win scholarships, received some need-based financial aid, took out student loans, and was able to get a really great undergraduate degree. But that experience really made me want to give back and help students. That's what encouraged me to go into a career in college admissions. So after I graduated from Wake Forest, I worked in the admissions office at Kenyon College, which is a small liberal arts college in Ohio, for a number of years. At Kenyon, I did everything from read applications, served on the admissions committee. I think at last count, I read something like 10,000 essays and applications. So can definitely speak to the admissions process, particularly at liberal arts colleges, if you have any questions about that. I also ran the college's merit scholarship program, served on financial aid appeals committee. So kind of had my hands on a lot of different parts of the admissions and scholarship and financial aid processes. After my time at Kenyon, I really wanted to work more closely with students and families. So I got a job as an associate director of college counseling at a private high school in Connecticut, where I worked for a number of years advising students and families through the admissions process, also helping them complete FAFSA, apply for scholarships, and make sure that made sure that all the students I worked with were fully funded before stepping onto campus. Afterwards, I went full-time on a side project I've been working on for a while called Scholarship 360. Scholarship 360, our goal is to provide students with the advice, resources, and tools to pay for college. Again, really excited to be here tonight to talk to you all about scholarships. And as we're here together, definitely happy to answer all of your questions. So as things come up, just feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom and ask anything that's on your mind. And at the end of the webinar, we'll get to all your questions. So just want to cover a little bit what we're going to be discussing tonight. One, scholarship research for both college-specific merit scholarships and outside scholarships. Also want to talk a little bit about how you can complete your applications and essays in the most powerful and unique way. Also would like to speak to this idea of scholarship displacement and why it matters. I think sometimes there's this idea that scholarships are always going to be a net positive for students. And well, that's usually the case. That's not always the case. And I just want to talk about that because I think it doesn't necessarily get a lot of attention, but can be impactful for students and for families. And as I mentioned, want to leave plenty of time for any questions that you have. I know if you're a senior coming back from December break, January, you're probably wrapping up some of your college applications. Maybe you're getting started on applying for scholarships, which is awesome. If you're a junior, a sophomore, a freshman, you're way ahead of things, which is great. I think one of the misconceptions about scholarships is that you have to apply as a senior. So it's good to get a head start on that. So that said, I want to talk about 5 myths about scholarship research and kind of frame this segment about scholarship research with these myths. So myth number 1, I should cast a wide net to win as much money as possible. So a lot of students think that scholarships are just a numbers game, that you apply to enough scholarships, you're going to win some of them. I think that this seems sort of logical, and I think it can be really tempting as if you're keeping track in a spreadsheet or something of all the scholarships you've applied to. It feels really good just to see that number get bigger and bigger. I think that this is a mistake because it forces you to focus on just the volume of scholarships that you're applying to, as opposed to finding scholarships that are actually a really good fit for your background, for your experiences, for your goals, and for your interests. I think a lot of times the absolute best scholarships are really unique scholarships that are tailored to who you are as a student. So, if you're a student that's interested in community service or activism, there's going to be a bunch of scholarships for you. If you're, a student of, a specific background or from a specific state, there's likely to be many scholarships available that are meant to support students just like you. So definitely there is some truth that if you're not applying to a number of scholarships, you're not going to win any. But I'd really encourage you to focus on scholarships that are aligned to who you are. I know that there's a lot of scholarships that are sort of these easy or no essay scholarships that are more along the lines of contests. And while it can feel good just to knock out a few of those, maybe you can apply to those very, very quickly. And it'll feel good to say, oh, I applied to 6 scholarships today. Awesome. But the truth is that because they're contests, you actually have a very small chance of winning those scholarships. So, not that there's anything wrong with them, but just being honest about your chances and putting your best effort towards scholarships that have more substantial applications and that are actually good fits for you. So that's myth number 1. Myth number 2, scholarships are only available to straight A students. When I worked on the high school side at Hopkins School, which was the school I was at, this was one of the most common assumptions that students had when they came into my office. Sometimes students might be a solid B or B+ student, and they'd say to me, Mr. Geiger, there aren't scholarships available for me. They're just for students who are straight A students with stunning SATs and ACTs. They're not for me. And I would just ask them a little bit about what what they might be interested in, or if they had a passion, and chances are they did. And it turns out that there was a bunch of scholarships that didn't even care what their grades looked like. They were really about students who might have a special talent and art or music. Might be for students who are passionate about something that they can talk about in a video or an essay. So don't count yourself out of the scholarship process if you're not a perfect student. Even for scholarships where there is a GPA requirement, they might be considering that as one of many factors. Similar to college admissions, scholarship committees many of them are reviewing applicants in what's called a holistic review process, which is essentially means they're taking into account lots of factors before choosing a choosing a winner for a particular scholarship. And I know this because when I was at Kenyon, I was chairing the Merit Scholarship Committee and working with my colleagues who were choosing scholarship recipients in art and writing and music. And grades definitely played a role, but especially for those really specific scholarships that were based on talent, we were much more interested in how the students were going to contribute to those areas on campus, and just more interested in how talented they actually were. And don't worry, I'm not a musician or an artist. I was not assessing that component of their application. We had really wonderful faculty who were assessing the students' talent in whatever area that they were applying to the scholarship in. You should also know that there's a number of colleges that are offering college-specific merit scholarships to a pretty broad range of students. At some colleges, definitely scholarships will be awarded to a very specific portion of the class. I know at my alma mater at Wake Forest, the merit scholarships are really designated for students who are in the top couple of percent in the applicant pool. So that really does skew pretty heavily towards students who are really high achievers as far as grades and test scores. But at many other colleges, scholarships are going to be awarded to a pretty broad array of students. So some of them will even have actually publicly available rubrics for how they're evaluating potential scholarship recipients. So you might see something like, oh, if you get like X GPA and maybe Y test score. And I know with the test scores is a little bit fuzzier now, depending on if the college requires test scores or if they require them for scholarships. So you should always just check with the specific college in question just to double check their process. But at many schools, you'll see a rubric. I know one is Arizona State University, and they have a calculator, an estimator that students can complete when they're in high school. And you can see exactly how much money in merit scholarships you'll get from Arizona State, which is really, really helpful. And as someone who's in this space, I really just love that sort of transparency. Many colleges actually now on their net price calculators will also have questions that will help predict merit scholarships, which is also quite useful. And just if you were at a previous webinar, I'm sure talked a little bit about the net price calculator, which is an estimator that will help you and your family predict need-based financial aid at any college or at a university. And now many of these net price calculators will also, if the college offers merit scholarships, many of them will include estimates for merit scholarships, which is just really helpful for planning purposes, just because I think that that's, oftentimes a really stressful thing for families who, are trying to make make cost and affordability one of the big things that they're considering when choosing a college. And it's hard. It used to be hard when you had to wait until you actually got your financial aid package after you already applied to every college, which just does not make a ton of sense. But now with the net price calculator, it does provide a little bit more transparency into what the cost would look like for you and your family. Obviously, the net price calculator is not perfect. It's just going to be as good as the information that you put into it, but it does provide a good estimate. So just bottom line, definitely there's scholarships available for students of various grades and lots of talents, and then a ton of the essay and video scholarships that are just going to support students who are really interested in something or really passionate about something. We just went through a really big project codifying a lot of scholarships into our system, and it was really interesting for me to see just honestly how few scholarships actually had clear-cut GPA requirements. A decent chunk do, but I would say that the majority don't, and are more focused on supporting students and other with other sort of interests and talents. All right. So myth number 3: scholarships with long applications are a waste of time. This is another common misconception. I guess to share a quick story, when I was working on the high school side of things, I had a student come to my office who was interested in applying to the scholarship program called QuestBridge, which is a really amazing program that's meant to support really high achieving low income students. They partner with a number of really top-notch colleges, guarantee that students who are QuestBridge scholars will be fully funded. So it's a really awesome opportunity. the student was a little bit discouraged by the QuestBridge application, which is pretty intense. There's multiple stages, essays. It's a pretty lengthy process, which is understandable, just considering the fact that if you're a QuestBridge scholar, you're going to be guaranteed admission to one of these amazing schools and get a full ride. So in this case, it was absolutely worth it. The student wound up getting, becoming a QuestBridge scholar, getting matched and everything. Awesome. But if they really were so hung up on the scholarship, like length and the amount of time, it did take a lot of time to complete. That would have been a shame, just because it was a really awesome opportunity. I think that some of the best scholarships actually do have longer applications, just because there's less. Part of it is just there can be less students applying to them. And when thinking about scholarships and advising students in this space, I'm all about like going where there is less competition. Where there's a lot of competition, all those contest scholarships, and the easy scholarships, and the no essay scholarships, because they take 2 seconds to apply to. There's a lot less competition, scholarships that might require specific essays or video, component, or have longer applications. So don't discount these opportunities. I think that they just give you more of an opportunity to share who you are and what makes you special and a really great applicant for the award. So definitely don't discount the scholarships with longer applications. They do take a little bit more time, but definitely I think more upside. And if you were to look on average, generally, your likelihood of winning and earning the scholarship, I think that's going to be higher than on the scholarships with very minimal requirements. Myth number 4, I should only research scholarships online. So this is probably kind of strange. Right now, my full-time job, I'm co-founder, CEO of scholarships360.org. So definitely check us out if you're looking for advice. We have a scholarship newsletter that's really awesome, so check us out. But I can see why it would be strange to say that you should look elsewhere for scholarships. But I think that this is true because every student has access to Google. Every student has access to all of these online digital scholarship tools, and every student is applying for many of these awards. They become quite competitive just because they are it's very easy to find them and discover them. That's wonderful on one level, and really I think it's great like how easy the internet makes it to access information, access high quality information about scholarships. That's great. But it is also a big missed opportunity for, I think, especially for certain local awards that you might not be able to find online and that are a little bit more difficult to spot. The scholarship market is really fragmented, where there's like just tons of companies and nonprofits and small organizations and foundations that are offering scholarships, but they're not all in one place. At Scholarships 360, one of the things we are trying to do is centralize as much of this as possible. Let me tell you, it is really hard. And I think that a lot of these awards, we just don't know they exist because they are awarded through local PTOs or PTAs, or might be awarded at your local place of worship. It might be awarded by a local nonprofit or foundation that they might not have a website. They might not accept online applications. It might still be paper. I know that seems kind of strange in the year 2022, but is absolutely the case. And one of the great things about these scholarships is that they're a little bit harder to find, which means they're going to be a little bit less competitive and just give you, if you find them and put together an awesome application, a better chance of earning the scholarship. So definitely this means a little bit of footwork for you if you want to find some of these scholarships with a Google source. I would go and talk to your school counselor. I would look if your local place of worship, at your church or mosque or synagogue. Check out if there's a community newsletter or website or Facebook page, might have scholarships for students. Other local organizations or local PTO, PTA, athletic booster organizations. I would knock on some doors, send some, I guess more likely, send some emails, make some phone calls, and to repeat, talk to your school counselor. Usually they're the they're a really good source of information about this. They are the person that these organizations are coming to with these opportunities. So would definitely recommend taking a look at that. And the thing is, a lot of students are just not doing that. I remember, again, I sound like a broken record when I was with these anecdotes when I was a school counselor. But remember my first year working, there was one student who'd come to my office probably every week just looking for new scholarship applications. He was, one of a few students who did that, and he won a ton of them. And it was just a lot of these awards that were a little bit a little bit more local. They were, smaller dollar amounts, but they really added up and made a big difference for him. Which brings me to my last myth, that the scholarships with small awards aren't worth it. And I get it. You're probably looking at some of these scholarships, maybe it's $500 or $1,000, and then you go and Google a private school tuition, room and board, cost of attendance. You're like, why there's something that is not exactly lining up here, which I understand. But these small awards, they do add up, and they can make a meaningful dent in your tuition bill. One of the other important things about this is that if you win scholarships that could eventually replace even student loans in your financial aid package, you're going to be saving more than even just the dollar amount of the scholarship, because with a student loan, it is going to have an interest rate, which is going to accumulate over a period of time, and you're going to wind up paying back more money than the student loan was originally worth when you paid for college. So these small awards can make a big difference. And again, I think there is an element of a little bit less competition, particularly for the local awards, that make them pretty attractive for students. So these are my 5 myths to help you guide your scholarship research process. I think Scholarships 360 is an awesome resource. There's a lot of amazing resources online, but as I mentioned, I wouldn't limit your research to just online research. I would think local, and I would also spend a little bit of time thinking about who you are and your interests and your background, your experiences, your goals, and use that as sort of to build a roadmap for the types of scholarships that might be a good fit for you, and really, putting time into finding specific awards that are aligned to that. All right, so next up, completing your scholarship applications and essays. So I've organized this part into 3 do's and 3 don'ts that we'll run through. I'll add a little bit of context. And as if you joined later, you can feel free to put any questions in the Q&A. We'll be getting to those after the presentation. So first do for completing your application, your essay, and this is more specific to the essay, but you should read your essay out loud. One of the interesting things when you're an admissions officer is just sitting. Usually it's a winter day. You would usually have a cup of coffee. We at that point, like, working from home. This was like 2014, so working from home was actually like a novel thing. So it's quite nice just to relax on my couch, read some applications with my coffee. Ohio is really cold in the winter, so I was usually very grateful just to be inside and have to heat up the car. I would go through, read maybe 20, 30 applications in a day. My favorite part was the essays. I think, like most admissions officers, it's just a really interesting way to learn about the applicant. People don't get into admissions to be assessing all the different types of transcripts there are in the US, and there are a lot. You get into admissions to learn about some really awesome students. And I think that my one big takeaway after reading many essays is that the best essays were engaging, they were interesting, and it felt like the student was talking to me, that they were using their natural spoken voice, and their personality was coming through in the essay. And I think that I know that's not very specific, but my takeaway is pretty specific. I think one way of getting at that is to read your essay out loud and ask yourself, is this what I sound like? If a friend read this essay, would they know that it was me? And if the answer is no, I think you might want to revisit your essay a bit. I think your essay should really reflect who you are, your personality, and your natural voice. I actually think a lot of really interesting essays, your written voice mirrors your spoken voice, and that's a really good way to sort of figure out, like, does this sound like me or does this sound like someone else? You should, when I think sometimes students think that their job is to try to impress admissions officers or impress scholarship committee members. And I think it's a big mistake, because it just misses an opportunity to just share who you are. And at the end of the day, the admissions officer and scholarship committee member, they want to learn about who you are. And if you're doing that in a really personal, authentic way, that's just going to be way more engaging and way more interesting. And it's just going to help your case more, which is the other like big upside. So before you submit an essay, you should read it out loud. I also think it can just be a really great way, if you're feeling stuck, to even record yourself and then transcribe that recording to just get started, and just to see what you just to put that on paper and play around with that a little bit. I think that can be a really great way if you're feeling a bit of writer's block. But before you turn in your essay, submit it, you should definitely read it out loud and make sure that it's something that you feel like is you. Another do. At the same time, I think it's also important to have another trusted person to review your essay. It's always helpful, whether it's for grammar purposes or just to have someone else give you a gut check on your essay. It's going to be to your benefit. I don't know if you've ever been in the situation where you're working on a paper and you just feel like you're so absorbed with the paper that you just can't objectively assess it, and it might not really even make sense, but like you have gone over it so many times, you've revised it so many times that it just makes sense in your head, because you know exactly what you want to say and what the goal is. Having another person read it can also be a really great gut check for that. So if you have a trusted sibling, a friend, a parent, school counselor, your teacher, anyone who you feel like is a good who knows you, is a has a good good sense of your writing, I think that can be a really good move, and should be part of your process for everything that you're producing and eventually submitting for scholarship or admissions essays. My third do, keep the scholarship, and this is specific for scholarship essays and applications, and keep the scholarship or awarding organization in mind when completing your application and essay. I also think that at this point, you might have your Common App done for your coalition application or your UC application questions, University of Texas, whatever application you're using. You probably have that done. You have some essays under your belt. You have an application that's completed. And I think with scholarship essays, there can be the temptation just to kind of fill them out in a very generic way. But I think that this can be a mistake if the scholarship is aimed at supporting a specific type of student. In that case, you really want to lean into, where your, again, background, experiences, interests are a fit for that award. So, for example, if it's, a scholarship that's really focused on community service, you definitely want to lean into sharing, if you were a Girl Scout and you did your Gold Award, you did a project for that, you want to share a little bit more about what that project was all about, how you started it, how it went, the impact you made in your community. That would be a really great opportunity to share that, because that's going to be very relevant for the specific scholarship. So I think that you can sometimes get through scholarships more quickly with a generic application and essay, but your just success rate is going to be much lower than if you spend a little bit of time really tailoring it towards the organization awarding the scholarship with a prompt that's being asked. So now we're going to get to 3 don'ts. First, don't have too many people read your essay. I'll never forget one day as part of my school counseling job, I'd like to review every student's essay and just kind of see make sure that everything looked good and be a resource for students who wanted another set of eyes. So that was great. Remember one student came in my office. They shared before they had shared the essay with me in Google. And one of the interesting things about Google is that you can see all the other people who have commented and had access and viewed the essay. And I saw honestly, it was like almost double-digit people. It was like 7 or 8 people who had commented on this essay. And it was just a complete mess. It sounded nothing like the student. And I asked them, I was like, hey, like, why, like, just, I just noticed, I wasn't trying to be nosy, but in the Google Doc you shared with me, there's a lot of people like commenting on this and this document. And the student was just like, oh, I just wanted to, just get as many people as possible just to read the essay. And she, all these various people, were, very, accomplished, successful people in her life, friends and family members and such. So I think it made a lot of sense to her, just that more people reviewing would just yield a better essay. And I guess there is like some logic to that. But the result was just this like Frankenstein essay that did not, it just did not feel like it was written by the student. And I think it was just a classic case of just having too many chefs in the kitchen, too many opinions, as opposed to just the student really trying to trust their voice, and trust that the story that they wanted to tell in their essay was the right one. So I would just be careful having too many folks read your essay. I don't necessarily want to be too prescriptive and give a specific number where it would be, how many is too many. But I think once you get to the point where you feel like your voice is being diluted and you don't really recognize the essay anymore, I think that's a point to stop and reflect on, whether, what value these extra readers are adding to your essay review process. Other don't recycling essays. I think that with scholarships particularly, it can be very, very tempting just to use the same essays over and over again. When I think sometimes students underestimate how many essays that admissions folks and scholarship readers are reading, and we can just like tell like that if an essay does not like exactly fit the prompt, and if it's something that's slightly different that I just know they grabbed from like one of their Yale University supplements and they just kind of pop this in here, it is something that the reader will pick up on. I think that there's individual stories that you might be able to recycle, but you should just be really, really careful about how you're reusing essays. I think that some of the like worst situations of this I've seen have just been with students forgetting to change the name of the college or the scholarship in the essay. One particularly bad one was the student, they wrote the college's name, the one college's name, but there's a typo in it. So it was like clear that like Control F did not pick that up. So it was like Davidson with like too many D's in the essay. And it was kind of just a double whammy where it was like they made the typo and they also had the wrong college. So just be really, really careful. And I hope if there's just one thing that you'll take away from this chat is approaching the scholarship process with a lot of thought and being super intentional. Just not treating it like a volume game, where cutting corners is kind of a good thing. And then lastly, don't skip optional application components. So this will go for both admissions and for scholarships. But if there's anything that you see as optional, if you can do it within reason, you absolutely should do it, just because someone else, probably many other students, will be doing it. So whether that's an essay or an interview or a video, that's just going to be a way to really, really stand out. It's interesting to me, like my more recent experiences reading scholarships have been via Scholarships 360, where we offer some awards of our own, and some of them some of them had optional components, some of them have had required components. But it's really interesting, just when students, if they don't submit an optional essay, just it's something that we just really can't consider, because so many other students have written amazing essays that really tell a really powerful story about who they are and like why they're a great candidate for the scholarship. So it's just such a missed opportunity. So again, I think just the cutting corners in this process is just a really big mistake. And if you don't have the time to really commit to submitting an excellent application and fulfilling all of the parts of the application, maybe you don't need to apply for the scholarship, and maybe you should spend more time on a scholarship that you do feel like you can complete all the required components. So those are 3 do's and 3 don'ts. definitely keep the questions coming in the Q&A. Excited to get to those at the end. If you just joined, my name is Will Geiger, co-founder of Scholarship 360, and we'll be getting to Q&A in a few minutes, so feel free to drop questions in the Zoom Q&A. So the last topic I want to talk about is something that I've been thinking a lot about. It's this idea of scholarship displacement. So scholarship displacement is this, it's this idea that scholarship dollars you receive may not ultimately benefit you as a student and might just displace other financial aid that you receive. So if that doesn't make a ton of sense, I put together this chart that I hope kind of walks through like what this looks like in practice. Just because I think it's important to note that while scholarships like most of the time are helpful for students, there are situations where they may not benefit you. And it's possible for students to be at the point in their scholarship, financial aid search where they're kind of good to go, and additional scholarships are just not going to actually help them. So all the way on this left-hand side, or the first column, award letter, we're going to walk through a couple of things. So cost of attendance, this is just the total, and these are just hypothetical numbers. This is cost of attendance, tuition, room and board, all of the fees for the college. So let's just call this $50,000. $10,000 is your expected family contribution, which is what the after you submit your FAFSA and maybe your CSS profile, the college expects your family to contribute because they're assessing your financial need at $40,000. So 40,000 plus 10,000 equals 50,000. Makes sense, right? And then we get to the amount of financial aid awarded, and that's $40,000. So this is great. The financial aid awarded equals financial need, which is not always the case. So the student, has a really great award letter. We see how this is broken down. We see the need-based financial aid. Then we see they also got a $5,000 merit scholarship, and then there's $5,000 packaged in student loans. And right off the bat, the student doesn't have any outside scholarships. So there's a number of like situations where scholarship displacement, there's a number of policies for scholarship displacement. I guess just a disclaimer, I would check the colleges on your list, the colleges that you've been accepted to for their specific policy. Usually you can find that on their financial aid page. If you're having trouble finding it, you can email them or call your financial aid officer for more information. But two common policies are for your grants to be reduced via an outside scholarship, and then a situation where your student loans are reduced first, which I'll get to, but is a slightly better policy for students. So in this situation, the student wins a $5,000 scholarship. But since the grants are reduced first, we see that the college actually took away their merit scholarship. So the benefit is really nothing for the student. They still have to take out the $5,000 student loan. They have $30,000 in need-based aid. They have this outside scholarship. So really doesn't actually change their financial aid package, which seems really strange. But this college, their policy, they reserve the right to reduce financial aid if a student is bringing outside scholarships to the table. Under this third policy, where the student loans are reduced first, we see that the outside scholarship actually just replaces the student loan in the financial aid package. So this is a net positive for the student because they don't have to take out the student loan, and the outside scholarship is replacing that. You may also see that with work study as well. The colleges sometimes refer to work study and student loans collectively as like a self-help portion of the financial aid package. But just wanted to share a couple of examples, and you can take a look at this in the deck afterwards. There's also some great blog posts online that cover this, using some real life examples of students. But it's just, I think, a good reminder to always check with the colleges their scholarship displacement policy and how they're including outside scholarships in your financial aid package, just because it can vary, from college to college. Some colleges will award, they would award up to the cost of attendance and scholarships without, for all students. This can also make a difference if you have a gap in your financial aid, where that can actually be replacing something that your parents would be expected to contribute. So, for some colleges, the situation would be that $5,000. Let's say it was $10,000, $5,000 would replace the student loan, and then $5,000 would be used to reduce your expected family contribution. But ultimately, the amount of money cannot go above your cost of attendance. So I know that is a little, it's a little bit complicated, but I think the bottom line, if you're applying for outside scholarships, especially a substantial amount of outside scholarships, you should check with your college's policy and just seeing how all those puzzle pieces fit together. So I just kind of went over a little bit of how it can impact you. Definitely think if you have questions, talk to the financial aid office, your admissions officer at the college you've been accepted to. I think that this goes with just a lot. Anything where you do have like confusion, concern in this process, talk to the admissions office, talk to your financial aid officer. They're really great folks. They're there to help you. And whether it's with this, whether it's with financial aid appeals, or really anything, the earlier you talk to them, the better. And I mentioned checking in on the college's policy. You can do that online. And we're doing a little project at Scholarships 360. We're trying to create a database of all of these policies. For most of them, I've been able to pretty easily find them on financial aid websites. But again, something you can check in with if you have questions. So now we're gonna get to questions. So I know we have some time left. Really excited to dig into the things that are on your mind.
We have quite a few, Will, so let's jump in. So what if you've got a student who is perhaps a bit introverted, not a big joiner, not going to have a lot of leadership roles, maybe not even that interest in extracurriculars? Is that like a non-starter for a college scholarship search, or are there opportunities for a student like that?
No, there absolutely are opportunities. There's many essay scholarships where the scholarship committee is really just assessing your ideas in the essay and how you might be responding to a prompt. Some of my favorite essay scholarships are book related, where students will read certain books and will have opportunities in the essays to reflect on certain ideas from the books, which can be really fun for students. I know that the Scholastic Awards, there's some really great opportunities for students who are interested in writing and the creative arts. But there definitely are a lot of scholarships that are just that are just focused on essays and students' ideas. And just because I would consider myself a more introverted person. I definitely was when I was in high school, but that didn't mean I didn't have things to say or opinions on things. And I think that you can definitely find scholarships that will let you showcase that. Also mention, it's just like, it's never too late to try new things and to join a club, to try something new. So don't feel like that you're so far behind just because you haven't maybe you haven't joined many activities or clubs to date. There's always opportunities in college as well. You're definitely going to have some amazing opportunities to try new things, meet new people. So I would definitely keep that in mind, and don't feel discouraged if you feel like you just haven't found activities and clubs that have been the right fit so far. So yeah, I think bottom line, definitely doesn't preclude you applying for scholarships. And then obviously there's many academically focused scholarships that are very focused on your grades and academic achievements. So you should keep that in mind too. Also many scholarships for students who are interested in particular majors. So if you do have academic interest or things that you're interested in studying in college, you can probably find scholarships that are, meant to support students who are, considering those fields.
Great. We have to do kind of lightning round if we're going to get through all these questions. Well, okay.
Definitely.
So, I live in Georgia, and a lot of students here like to take advantage of the Hope and Zell Miller scholarships, but those have GPA requirements, as do most scholarships that are offered, right? There's usually strings attached, and so you have to meet a certain threshold for your GPA when you get to college, and some people don't meet those levels. So what advice do you have for a student who loses the initial scholarship that they started college with?
I would definitely, so if you're a current student, definitely talk to the financial aid office, see what your options are. I think that, they want to help. They want to make sure that, you're going to be, set up for success. So I would definitely see what your options are. There might be some opportunities for work study, other funding available to you, and then outside scholarships. So I would consider all of that. But I think your first call should be to the financial aid office, and just to like sit down, be on it, just try to be as honest as possible and see what your options might look like.
Thank you.
Mhm.
How does need-based and merit-based aid work? Is it possible to qualify for a merit scholarship without qualifying for need-based financial aid? Is there a need-based component for merit scholarships? Can you talk about that interplay a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So it's absolutely possible to qualify for both need-based, financial aid and merit scholarships. Some merit scholarships, you'll see language that they give preference to students who might be Pell eligible, or might be quote unquote low income, or meet some sort of other financial eligibility. So really depends on the scholarship, but definitely possible to win both types of awards.
Terrific. I would just add that some schools require students to have completed the FAFSA and attempted to apply for need-based financial aid before they can be considered for merit scholarships. That's the case at Georgia Tech, for example. Just to give you a school that uses that policy. It doesn't mean that you're disadvantaged in applying or being considered for merit scholarships. It just means that they're going to use the government's money before theirs. So they want to be sure that they have tapped all those resources before they tap into their own. So there are a lot of reasons for families to complete the FAFSA, even if they think they might not be eligible for need-based financial aid. Okay, we've got several questions about, sort of resources and ideas for researching scholarships. Rotary was one that got a shout out for
Mhm.
having some great scholarship programs. Another mom is touting her oldest daughter, bringing in a lot of outside scholarships that really added up. Those $500 awards knock out your
Love it.
textbooks for the fall semester. And a question that I love: are the scholarship books at the library still a good resource? As someone who went to the library and
Yeah.
opened that enormous tome and wrote letters asking, please, may I have an application to apply for a scholarship? Is that still a way? Is the old school way still a way?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that was honestly one of our frustrations creating Scholarships 360, is like a lot of scholarship websites have like advertisements and just were not the best user experience. And I think sometimes the best user experience is just the book it's simple, it's straightforward, it's clear. So whatever works for you. You might be able to get some of those like books on like Kindle, or like an e-version of them as well. That provides like a really like clear like user experience. But yeah, I mean, if it's been the 2021 2022 issue of it, I would definitely say go for it, and it can be helpful. I think sometimes, I mean, I am a kind of a physical book person, so it is nice, I think, just to have something to sort of browse through, whereas like doing that can be a little bit less satisfying on the internet.
Any specific suggestions for students who are interested in writing for sort of how to find those scholarships? And then on the other side, for students who are allergic to words,
Mhm.
STEM students who don't want to write anything, any particular resources or suggestions on either end of the spectrum?
Yeah, so for students who are interested in writing, definitely looking for like writing and essay scholarships. we have a number of really great lists at Scholarships 360 for in both of those categories. I think Scholastic is a particularly great opportunity that's available to students in multiple grade levels for various types of creative writing. And many college-specific scholarships will also have an essay component, so you'll definitely get to showcase your writing chops there. As far as students who are looking for other types of scholarships, some STEM-focused scholarships, unfortunately, will have a writing component, but it's going to be really about your interest in the STEM field, and might be asking you to reflect on a particular idea. So I would say give it a chance. Don't be completely deterred by the writing component of the application. There are certain STEM scholarships that will have more of an actual scientific component, where you might be submitting some sort of research as part of the scholarship application. There's also increasingly more and more video scholarships, which I think can be really cool options for students who are comfortable using that as a format. So we've definitely seen a lot more video scholarships where gives you the ability to share a story and share a little bit more about yourself and your interests, but just not in just a different medium.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about several different resources that people can use to search for scholarships. We've talked about looking for local organizations, asking your school's guidance office for their lists, or staying tuned to that list as they publish it. Scholarship360.org we know is a great resource. Are there other ones that you would recommend, other places to go and places to look?
Yeah, so I think that one other interesting resource is called Raise.me, and they award micro scholarships to students. So sort of an interesting concept. Probably would be a little complicated to explain, so we only have a few minutes left. But they partner with a number of colleges and will award these micro scholarships for small things like joining a club or getting an A in a class. So I think that's worth checking out. There's another great resource called bold.org. And one of the cool things about Bold is that they are creating a philanthropy platform where individual donors can donate money to create new scholarships, and it's sort of like a common application for scholarships. So I know the folks at Bold, and I think they're doing a really great job of creating, building a bigger pie of scholarship dollars.
Thank you. I like a few also Fastweb is one that has been out there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for you all to recognize, if you don't have to pay for something, you are paying for it with your information. So recognize that if you're giving someone your contact information, they're going to contact you maybe a lot. So you might have to sort of comb through those things a little bit. One of the things we did at our house is we made a particular Gmail address that my high school junior and I share, so that we can keep an eye on things, but we don't have to feel bombarded in our regular email accounts from things like that. But that's sort of an old school one. Going Merry is another organization like Scholarships 360 that's trying to share good information with students. Scholly is an app that a former Coca-Cola scholar created. He similarly funded his college education through a conglomeration of scholarships and wanted to be able to pay that forward and backwards to students. So there's there are a lot out there, but you need to work for the money in some fashion. So I think it's, recognize that it's going to take some legwork and some time to get good information. So when do you think students should start applying for scholarships and doing this research well?
I think as soon as possible. Definitely don't need to wait until second semester of senior year to start applying for scholarships. There's opportunities for students in all grade levels. You'll definitely find more available to you probably summer after junior year going into senior year. But just the more time you're applying just gives you more opportunities to earn scholarship dollars. So I would try to make it into a habit. but also don't, just to, echo Ginger, don't forget about FAFSA, CSS profile. Those are, well, private scholarships are great, outside scholarships are great. The need-based financial aid from specific colleges, the merit scholarship programs from specific colleges in general, I think are represent the biggest amount of dollars that students will, receive to pay for college. So, don't forget about those. And, as you're starting your college search, be mindful of the colleges where, you might be a good candidate for merit scholarships and need-based financial aid.
I love the confidence of this question. What happens if you get so much scholarship that it exceeds the cost of your college tuition? What happens? Do you just get
So
to pocket the money?
I wish, just I guess due to the scholarships are, they're not treated as like taxable income for you. So you'll have to report all of those scholarship winnings to the college, and they will reduce your financial aid to make sure that you do not exceed the cost of attendance. And that's just like a legal thing. I wish, I wish, you'd be keeping every dollar. But that also means once you hit that cost of attendance, it probably doesn't make sense to continue to apply for scholarships just because it's not actually going to benefit you. So that goes back to the displacement idea.
And there are some scholarships that you can use for education related expenses. So there are some that you can use to buy yourself a really great laptop
Mhm.
or software programs and things like that. So there is a little bit of that, but the money goes to your bursars account for the most part. And so it has to be something that the bursar is charging you for, which is probably not all the things that a college student can you talk, Will, a little bit about how the impact COVID had on students' participation in extracurricular activities is going to be taken into consideration by people on the decision side?
Absolutely. Just, talking to friends who are in admissions and college counseling, it's just, so clear that like of the things that COVID has impacted, like education has been one of the things that's, if most significant, one of the things that's most significantly impacted. So admissions officers totally understand that some very unusual times to be a student. A lot of the normal activities that might be available to students, were not available. So all of that context will be taken into account as you're applying to college and for scholarships. So if there's a big gap in like a particular activity that you love doing, don't stress about that. I think that just do your best. I think there's obviously like other in your essays, other parts of your application, you don't just have to talk about activities. You can talk about ideas and other things that you're really passionate about. So definitely you have a lot to worry about right now, and a lot of things on your plate. It's been a couple of stressful years, so don't stress about that portion of the application process for scholarships or admissions.
Thank you. Some colleges have offered to do something called a financial aid review for families who might be considering applying early decision. Do you think that's a good practice for colleges? Do you think it's something that families can rely on?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the college. What the specifics of the financial aid review are. So I guess just like speaking to that very broadly, I think it is a good thing to get more transparency. I think that any review before you actually submit official financial aid documents, is only going to be as good as the information that you provide. So the final financial aid decision will be made based off of your FAFSA and in some cases CSS profile or other supplemental financial aid forms. So just remember that is when it's official, and that can make a difference if like circumstances change or numbers were not completely might be slightly off. I think it's instructive. It's good to have that degree of transparency, but it's not final until you actually submit the official documentation. Ginger, I don't know if you'd add anything else to that.
I think that's really helpful. It's a mixed bag. I think what we're hearing
Yeah.
from students and families about how reliable the information they're getting from a net price calculator is. I mean, the cost of a college is pretty reliable, but any of these kind of estimates are like anything, it's on, the outcome is only as good as the inputs. So you have to be very careful about the data that you're putting in, and the institution needs to be doing a really good job of creating a system that enables them to make good predictions. I think one of the best things families can do for themselves is to start the college process with a really honest conversation about the cost of college. Is there a particular budget? Is there a 529 plan and that's all you got? Or is there, is the family, going to have a zero expected family contribution? And so looking just at schools that meet 100% of need so they won't get a gap. Knowing sort of what the family has to offer in terms of support, what the student is planning to do to put skin in the game themselves. Are you going to get a work study job? Are you going to take out some loans, not a crazy amount of loans, just enough to keep you employed? What's the plan? And to have that conversation on the front end, and then how much work you have to do on finding outside scholarships to fill the gap if there is one. And that gives you some good incentive for that work. Because there was some question about the timeline of this, and it's up to the outside scholarship service when their application is due, whether or not you're qualified as an international student, or depending on your status, and when they're going to tell you about it. So they don't have to follow the same guidelines that the colleges do about their notification dates. So it may be that you won't have all the information that you need in order to make an informed decision if you're really counting on outside scholarships to make college affordable. So it's an important conversation, I think, for families to start the process with. Any last sort of piece of advice, Will, before we let you go?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you all taking time out of your evenings to be here tonight. And I just want to say, this, I know the financial aid component of paying for college can be kind of daunting, but you've totally got this. Just I think by being here tonight, you're taking a really important step into just taking ownership over this process. I think you should apply for scholarships early and often. And remember, there's a lot of people in your corner who are here to support you. I have my email right here. If you have any questions, always happy to provide any advice or insights that I can. Same thing with your school counselor, your teachers. You have a lot of people in your corner, so lean on them during this time. But thanks again, everyone, for letting me join you tonight.
Thank you, Will. And if you could go to the next slide. One thing I wanted to share is that Appleruth is hosting a national practice test weekend at the end of February. One thing we didn't talk a lot about tonight is that there are a lot of these kind of specific merit scholarship awards, some of those automatic ones that Will talked about in the beginning, the matrix of qualification, that if you hit a certain mark on the SAT or the ACT, then you just get paid. It's an automatic scholarship. So it's pretty good return on investment for the effort that you put into seeing where your test scores stand and potentially prepping to get them into those high score ranges. So we invite you to join us for this opportunity. It's free. You can take either an SAT or an ACT or both if you just can't think of anything better to do that weekend. We'd be glad to have you. You'll also be automatically enrolled in some really great strategy sessions beforehand, and some follow-up sessions on how to make sense of your scores. So we invite you to register for that. We'll be sharing a copy of this recording and the slides out. Look for that next week. And that will be your chance to jot down any notes that you might have missed. We invite you to share it with friends and family that you think might find it helpful as well. I thank you so much, Will, for being with us tonight and sharing the great resources and ideas that you have with us. I'm grateful for it. I'm excited for the students who are joining us tonight, the adventures that they have ahead. There are many pathways to continue your education and to achieve your goals, and we wish you all the best in your journey. Thank you all so much, and good night.